What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters, and welcome to No Life to Metal. Gonna be doing a ranking video. I don't do a whole lot of these. I haven't done one in a long time, actually, but I had a request for one by actually several people, so I thought I'd go ahead and do it. I'm gonna be doing Ted Nugent's studio albums, just his solo stuff. So no damn Yankees, no Amboy Dukes, no Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes, and any of that kind of stuff. It's just his studio albums proper. So no EPs, no live albums, no compilations, because there's a ton of that kind of stuff as well. This is just his studio albums. But I am going to start off with this one thing. This is Double Live Gonzo, and even though I said no studio, no live albums, I had to mention this album as just one of my all-time favorite albums. I've loved it since I was a kid. When I literally was a little kid in the 70s, a neighbor who was a teenager had this huge record collection, and he had this awesome room that was full of records and posters. I just loved his place, and I was literally in grade school, but he played a bunch of stuff that I'm still into today, but this is one of those albums that he played, and I just became a fan of it. Instantly loved the album. Like I said, one of my all-time favorite live albums. I've shared a story before. I'll share it again real quick, but I wanted this thing really bad for Christmas. It was about 1978, and my what do I want to call it? My aunt, every year we go to visit her, and she'd always buy me records because she knew I loved records. So she always asked me to give me a list. My mom would give her a list, so I put this one on the list. Well, I got there that particular Christmas, and sure enough, she bought me Double Live Gonzo, and she also bought me a Blondie record. I can't remember which Blondie record it was, top of my head. I assume it was whatever was new in 1978. But in any case, I was extremely pumped to get this album. And when I was driving in the car home with my parents from that Christmas thing, they let me know that they were aware of the language that was on the one of those albums, and that I would have to give that album up to them because it wasn't appropriate. Yeah, so I gave them the Blondie record, and that's how it worked. So we're gonna go ahead and get right into this. So I didn't necessarily, I put them in order, but I didn't number them. So we're just gonna go through this, and I'm gonna say from least favorite to favorite, but chances are most of these albums I absolutely love them. So if you would have asked me another day of the week, I might switch a few of them around. But the top five or so, they're always going to be the top five. But I'm going to start off with, this is from a couple years ago, 2018, 2019 maybe. But this is The Music Made Me Do It. New studio album, includes live DVD. The live DVD is cool. I did listen to that. I didn't actually watch it. I popped it into my computer and listened to it one day while I was working. But the actual album itself, it's okay. It just seems like he was going through the motions. Hey, we need to get something out so we can go on the summer tour. Let's put something new out. But it's got 10 songs on it. But number 8, Fred Bear Acoustic. Okay, Fred Bear has been done and redone again a million times by Nugent on EPs, on several different albums. I like the song, but it's not one of my favorite songs from him. But regardless, it's on here as part of the new studio album. Sunrise Band and Sunrise Fender Bass Solo. Again, those were Sunrise is kind of this mellow track, kind of a kicking back on the lake, hunting, fishing track that he wrote on one of his EPs, and it makes its way onto this album as well twice. So again, that leaves us with 7 actual songs on here. Now the songs aren't bad, but they're just not as memorable and as heavy, and as they're just not everything I want from Nugent. So this has been my least favorite album. It is probably the only Ted Nugent album that didn't make my top 20 to 30 list in the year it was released, which is a shame because I am a huge Nugent fan. I mean, I have been, like I said, since I was a little kid. So I'm not talking about his politics. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about any of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about his music, and that's why I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his music. So I have met him several times. Super nice guy. Was very, very nice to me. Was very nice to my children as well. And I can share other stories about him that where he was just a nice guy. A mutual friend of ours died, and we had taken a picture of myself, Ted, and my mutual friend when we got to meet him one of the times. And after my friend passed away, my wife took the pictures and sent them to Ted Nugent's address, just hoping that he would take a look and sign it. And she sent 2 pictures, one for him and one for me. And sure enough, he sent back the photograph, and he put, "In the wind, he's still alive. Love, Ted Nugent." So I mean, that's just class. He didn't he didn't have to do that, and my wife didn't have to do that. So I still have that picture hanging on my wall right there. So as a reminder, not only of how kind he was to me, but also of my good friend who has since passed away. So okay, next up, I don't hate this album, but it's definitely not my favorite album, and when I want to hear Nugent, it's not one of my go-to records, but this is Ted Nugent's Penetrator. This album is very different for Nugent. Love the cover art, always have. It was during his Atlantic years. They were pushing towards a more commercial direction. Keyboards are as important to the sound as the guitars. That right there should tell you something. Nugent is a guitar, master. He's just, he's always been just one of those guys where the guitar is the upfront instrument in the band, and here it's not quite that. It's more of a mixture of guitars and keyboards. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad album. I like the album. Brian Howe sings on the album, and the guy can definitely sing, and there's some great songwriting on here. If you like the Damn Yankees stuff, you probably like this too. I like the Damn Yankees, especially like the songs Nugent wrote, because he actually, made them into Nugent songs. But this album is okay. It's just not one of my favorites, but it's got some really hooky AOR style tracks like Tied Up in Love, Where Do You Draw the Line, or definitely two. Thunder Thighs is more of a regular Nugent romp. And then we've got Blame It on Night is another one. Lean Mean Rock and Roll Machine is more Nugent-esque track, but again, the production overall, it's very slick. It's not, lean and mean rock and roll machine like you would think the song says. It's definitely more, it's a very smooth production. So again, I like the album. It's just not one of my favorites, so it's on the bottom of the list for me. I happen to have a little Tied Up in Love and Please Do Not Disturb from the Hard Rock Hotel singing in the back of this thing. We stayed at the Hard Rock Hotel a few times, but for a while they had these on the doors for, if you didn't want to be disturbed, Tied Up in Love. So I was like, oh, gotta have one of those. So anyhow, all right, next up, this is a recent album from Nugent. This is Shut Up and Jam. I like this album a lot. So from now on, there's no albums in here that I don't like. I like them all. I'm just putting them in a ranking of, some of my favorites to some of my least favorites. And the only reason this one probably doesn't rank as higher is because there's so much great stuff in the 70s and the early 80s that I love that I just couldn't put this one higher. But there is some great stuff on here. Shut Up and Jam. It's the title track is great. Never Stop Believing is great. Do-Rags and a 45 is cool. Screaming Eagles is great. Semper Fi is awesome. He's got a blues version of Never Stop Believing on here. That's really good. She's Gone is great. Fear Itself is really good. There's not a bad song on here. He does do a I Love My Barbecue. He seems to like in recent years to write songs about barbecue. That song, I Love My Barbecue, seems like it's been done and redone on a few different releases, EPs, and again on this album. So it's okay. Not my favorite track from him, but I do think this is a great album for him. Shut Up and Jam. I kind of like the play off of the Free For All cover as well. So next up, this is probably his latest album. It's definitely his latest album. 2022, Pavement Records. This is Ted Nugent's Detroit Muscle. Good album. I mean, if you like Nugent, if you like his, that heavy. To me, he's always been like Chuck Berry on steroids. He's the heavy metal Chuck Berry. And I know people argue to death with me these days that Ted Nugent's not heavy metal, but back in the 70s, everybody called Nugent a heavy metal machine. Matter of fact, I don't have it here. It's over there. I have an original pressing of Double Live Gonzo with the hype sticker on it, and the hype sticker has a quote from Sounds Magazine, and it says, Ted's Gonzoid band is the greatest heavy metal outfit, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, even back in the 70s, he was considered one of the leading heavy metal guitar players. But regardless, that's off the topic. I really enjoyed this album. I thought it was a nice return to form, especially after this, which was a disappointment to me. Detroit Muscle's good. Come and Take It. Born in the Motor City, great song. American Campfire, he really likes to write songs about campfires and barbecue these days. Driving Blind, Leave Me Alone, Alaska, Leave the Lights On. And then he ends off with a great guitar rendition of Star Spangled Banner. It's a really good album. I enjoy it. Is it my favorite? Obviously not. It's not on the top of the list, but it's a good album. Ted Nugent, Detroit Muscle from 2022. Alright, I said I wasn't going to include live albums, but I did include this one. This is Intensities from, I believe it was 1981. It is a live album, but it's a studio album at the same time. And what I mean by that is it's all new tracks. He went on the road and he recorded new tracks in 10 songs in 10 cities. So he played brand new songs in front of a live audience and recorded them, and those songs became Intensities. So that's what you got here. 10 new tracks, and each track is a new Nugent song, and they were recorded live. I love this album. I know a lot of people thought it was just a contract filler, a kind of, a filler album, and perhaps it was, because he was moving away from Epic Records and on to Atlantic Records. But regardless, I really enjoy it. Again, I was, very young, a teenager at this point, so I mean, nostalgia plays a really important part in music, and I'm sure that's the reason I love this record, because I played it so much. But I mean, come on, it's just a great album. Put Up or Shut Up, Spontaneous Combustion, great song. My love is like a tire iron. I don't know. I can't even listen. I can't even say the name of the song without saying it the way he said it in the introduction to this thing. Jailbait, I'm a Predator, Heads Will Roll, The Flying Lip Lock, Land of a Thousand Dances, which of course is a cover song. The TNT Overture, TNT Ted Nugent Tour, and I Take No Prisoners. I think it's a great album. It could have been higher in my ranking, but there's just so much great music in this catalog to put it any higher, in my opinion. All right, next up, this one came way after that. This just came out a couple years ago on vinyl for the first time. I've got two versions of it. I've got this awesome bootleg version that a friend made me, and I've got this version which came out on Record Store Day. This is 2022 pressing. I can't remember what year this one came out. Anyhow, it's not that important, but I should have looked all that stuff up. I do these videos on the fly, man. I just... What is there? If it's not in my brain, it doesn't get said, and I can't remember the year. But regardless, this was a fantastic return to form after Nugent was gone for a long time. It was his return to Epic Records as well, or Sony Music, and it was just every song on here was great. I mean, Thiracious, Tooth, Fang, and Claw, Wrong Side of Town, Love Jacker, Fred Bear, which of course this was the original version of Fred Bear, Primitive Man, Hot or Cold, Kiss My Ass, a song he played live for years, Heart and Soul, Spirit of the Wild, Just Do It Like This, just a fantastic album from Ted Nugent. This is Spirit of the Wild. I saw him on this tour. He was spectacular. He was just a ball of fire on stage. I've seen Ted Nugent probably 10, 12, 15 times over the years, and he's never disappointed. So, like I said, great album. This one is available on vinyl and CD. It also, this particular version of it has two bonus tracks, one called Guns and Fan the Flame, that were originally not released on the original CD and cassette that came out back in the day. Alright, next up, another one of the Atlantic Years records. This is Little Miss Dangerous. A lot of people don't like the Nugent years on Atlantic because they were a little slicker, but I thought this was a fantastic record. Always found this back photo hilarious. Nugent looking a little goofy, but it's fun. It's funny. That's what Nugent was all about, fun. And unfortunately, his mouth these days has people disliking him because of his views, but his music is just fun. I mean, like I said, Chuck Berry on steroids. That's kind of how I always viewed his music, the heavy metal Chuck Berry. And this one's did have a hit song that was rather slick called High Heels in Motion. You can see that I got a hype sticker on this one that actually says High Heels in Motion. But it's got a lot of great stuff on here, including the title track, Little Miss Dangerous, which is a fantastic song. Just a jam. I believe the song is probably almost 5 minutes long, and a good portion of it is just some great guitar work. But Savage Dancer is a good song. Crazy Lazy is cool. Little Red Book, I love. Take Me Away, Angry Young Man, and then absolutely love the last track on here called Painkiller. Really, really good song. So, High Heels in Motion. Likewise, this one came out as well around the same time. This one was 88. This one was probably 86, right? Let's see here. Don't see a year on the 86 and 88. So very similar in style, but again, there's some slightly more commercial tracks on here, and where he was obviously looking to get the radio hits. But I also think he was pulling back from that a bit on this album and going back to his sound, because this one's just got a more raunchy, heavy rock and roll sound, and there's some great tracks on here. She Drives Me Crazy, If You Can't Lick 'Em is love that track. Spread Your Wings is a more melodic, mellow track, but man, it's such a good song. Absolutely love it. The Harder They Come, the Harder I Get. Typical Nugent name for a track there. Separate the Men from the Boys, Bite the Hand, That's the Story of Love, Fun Lover, Skin Tight. It's a solid record from him. Really enjoy it. Is it better than Little Miss Dangerous? I don't know. They're really tight. And when I was putting this list together, those two albums, I kept going back and forth which I wanted to put above the other. I think they're both fantastic. They kind of like bookend each other. Really good, solid albums from Nugent. And then his very first album for Atlantic Records, I probably literally have 10 different vinyl versions of this. Japanese pressing, a remastered pressing, a pressing that was apparently this album was actually used in warfare, or you know, that kind of thing. The military would play this album just to annoy other people, and they would just blast it over the speakers. And I think that was happening in, I can't remember what, Operation Desert Storm. They were just blasting music, and this is one of the albums that was played. So I have like a military version of this, which is kind of interesting and neat. I have an autographed version of it, as you can see here, because I've met Nugent on several occasions. This one was signed in 2007. Ted always almost always puts a year on his signatures. So yeah, really cool album. This is you know, his first for Atlantic. It's not slick like the other Atlantic records. It's more straightforward, what you expect from Nugent. It also features the return of Derek St. Holmes on vocals, which was important at the time. He played on the first 3 records, then they fell apart, and then he returned on this record. So it kind of has that sound to it with Derek St. Holmes' return. It also has Carmine Appice playing drums on this album, who of course is a legend in himself. But track-wise, No 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 was a great song. Bound and Gagged is a very fitting song these days. Habitual Offender, great song. Fighting Words, another great song. We're Gonna Rock Tonight, and Tail Gunner. I love Tail Gunner. We're Gonna Rock Tonight is kind of your rock and roll anthem kind of track. And there you go. Nugent by Ted Nugent. What was that, 1982? When would that one come out? 82. Okay, this was actually much newer. This one came out in 2007. This was Nugent on just firing all cylinders. Fantastic heavy record. Never been released on vinyl, unfortunately. This is Love Grenade. It has several different covers. This is the more common cover. As you can see, mine's autographed by him and the entire band. Got to spend the entire day with him on this particular tour, so I had everybody sign it, including Wild McBrown and the bass player whose name was... Gosh, now I'm going to forget who the bass player was, right? See if I can read his signature. I can't. I can't remember for the life of me who the bass player was on this one. But there's several covers to this one. This cover was only available through Nugent's website, and I only left it up there because I know that is probably going to be offensive to some people, and I can understand why. But that was one of the covers, and then there was also this is the CD itself, but this one was released as a cover as well. So there's a few different versions of it out there. I just think it's a great record. He does do a re-record of Journey to the Center of the Mind, which I really enjoyed. I think it's a really good updated version of the track. And, it kind of takes the classic 60s tracks and makes it into a modern hard rock, heavy metal classic. But Love Grenade is a great song. Still Raising Hell, great song. Funk You, fun song, really liked it. Girl Scout Cookies, could take that song or leave it. It's kind of goofy. I think that was the whole point of it. It was supposed to be a goofy song. Spirit of the Buffalo, very, very good song from him. Aborigine, great song. Stand, really good song. It's just a good album from him. So if you haven't heard this one and you like the classic Nugent sound, you're probably going to dig this album. Like I said, one of his more recent albums, you can find it pretty much everywhere. It's on Eagle Records back in 2007. Is that what I said it was? 2007. So there you go. Again, not on vinyl, only available as far as I know on CD. I don't even think it was ever released on cassette. This one here, I believe, was 1999. This is Crave Man. This is just balls to the wall Nugent. He released right before this an album called Full Bluntal Nudity, which I love that live record. But he played this song in there called Cluster Funky, and the studio version is on this album. It's just as heavy. It's short, kind of an instrumental intro thing. But on here, it's a little longer. It's almost 4 minutes, and there is vocals, although it's not really him singing. It's more of a kind of a gang vocal kind of thing. It's just a really heavy, fun song, which reads right into the song Crave, which just has Nugent screaming at the top of his lungs. Not only his vocals, but his guitar screaming. Great track from him. Damned If You Do, love it. Come and Get You some of this, love it. Change My Sex, a very apt song to a lot of things going on these days. I Won't Go Away, Wang Dang Doodle, kind of a bluesy track. I don't know, I just dig the whole record. My Baby Likes Butter on Her Grits, Sex Pot, and then the album ends with Earth Tones, which is a more melodic, instrumental, kind of earthy, ethereal kind of track, which ends the album off. It's a great record. I love this record. It obviously is one of my top albums. It may even be in my top 5. How many do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's number 7 in my list, and so it's in my top 10. All right, next up, Scream Dream. Great record. I play this thing a lot. I probably should have moved it up one more, but regardless, the next album's great too. So it's hard. So like I said, depending on the day of the week, some of these flip flop around. I play this record a lot. I remember back when this came out. What, it went 82 or so, was it? Let's see if there's a year on here. Don't see the year, but I think it was around 82 or so. Anyhow. It was around the same time that, so maybe 83, because I remember Creatures of the Night came out around the same time from Kiss. And my buddy in high school, his name was Tony Lee, who was the second guitar player in a band called Heathen's Rage. Anyhow, him and I would get together and jam records once in a while, and he's like, dude, you got to come over and check out the new Scream Dream from Ted Nugent. You're going to love it. It's just so heavy. So we went over and we jammed this record, and it's just a fantastic record. It's fun. Again, it's got a lot of this, like, Chuck Berry storytelling kind of stuff to it, which I dig. I mean, like I said, Chuck Berry on steroids, or the heavy metal Chuck Berry, but Wango Tango, Scream Dream, I mean, those two tracks he still plays live to this day. They're almost always in his set, and why not? Hard as Nails, I love it. I Got a Move, I love it. Violent Love, super heavy song, great. Flesh and Blood, another great track. Spit It Out, Come and Get It. Terminus, Eldorado, Terminus, El Dorado. I love that track as well. And then Don't Cry, I'll Be Back Before You Know It, Baby, is the track that finishes it off, which is just this kind of groovy, I don't know, just a groovy hard rock song from Nugent. This is probably, most people consider this part of his classic, albums, and I do as well. He was obviously wearing the loincloth at this point and swinging on, from the rafters on ropes and riding buffaloes out into the out into the stage and all that kind of stuff at this point. So he was definitely your wild man, Uncle Ten, the Whack Master, whatever you want to call him. And I wish I could have seen him on this tour. I started going to concerts around this time. I did see him on the following tour. I got to see him on the Nugent tour, but I didn't see him on this tour. Would have loved to have, though. But anyhow, fantastic stuff. All right. Next up, State of Shock. Most people consider it a classic. For whatever reason, this one was really hard to find on vinyl for a long time. It's been reprinted and put back out again, so you can find it again on vinyl. But just a great record. Not a bad song on here, really. Paralyzed is one of the songs that he kept playing over and over again over the years, as was this title track, State of Shock. But there's a lot of great stuff on here. That's deep tracks too. Saddle Sore, It Doesn't Matter, I Want to Tell You, which was a I believe a Beatles cover, if I'm not mistaken. Bite Down Hard, Alone, just a great Nugent record, along with, put it right up against Scream Dream. These two I could put either way, because I love them both. So this one is weak. I love this album. I mean, I really could have put this at number 1. I play this record so much, it's ridiculous. I have since I was a kid. This came out in 1978. This was part of the first 4 studio albums that he did. And those first 4 studio albums, most people consider his best. Not a bad track on here either. I play this thing ridiculous amount of times, but I love Weekend Warrior. Need You Bad is a classic track that he still plays live. Smokescreen is a brilliant song that I wish he played more often. It's just a jam. Good Friends and a Bottle of Wine is a fun track. I Got the Feeling, One Woman, Tight Spots. It's just a solid record from him. Every song on here I enjoy. Like I said, one of the most played records in my collection, no doubt. Probably his most well-known record, this is Cat Scratch Fever. This came out in, 1976, I believe it was, maybe 77 probably. And, yeah, 77, because this came out in 78. Double Live Gonzo came out in 78. So, yeah, this has got a lot of his classic tracks on here. Cat Scratch Fever, Wang Dang Sweet Poontang, Death by Misadventure, Live It Up, Homebound, Working Hard, Playing Hard, Sweet Sally, 1,000 Knives, Fist Fightin' Son of a Gun, and Out of Control. Every one of these tracks are considered classics. Almost every one of these songs has showed up on some compilation or another, if not in his box set. Just a great record from Ted. And it, of course, Cat Scratch Fever was one of his biggest hit songs. So, 2 more to go, and not surprising, Free for All, his second album as Ted, as a solo artist on Ted Nugent on Epic Records, and this obviously is Japanese pressing. Again, every track on here is a classic. Most of these, I've got like 4 different versions of this with slight alterations to the cover and an autographed copy, but most of these songs he's played live through the years. Dog Eat Dog, Free for All, Together, Hammer Down, Running on the Wall, Light My Way, Street Rats, I Love You So, I Told You. Let me try it one more time. I Love You So, I Told You a Lie, and Turn It Up. Turn it up, turn it up, take it louder than hell, turn it up, turn it... Yeah, anyhow, I love Nugent, I love this album, so... And then, of course, number 1, only one of the greatest albums ever. I've got several versions of this, but this is my favorite copy because I've had this copy for decades. It is a little worn, but it's mine. It's got a little bit of ring wear, it's got a little bit of wear on the cover, but I've had this thing for decades, and it's been played so many times it's ridiculous. So his classic album, it's got the biggest hits on it, or his most well-known songs except for Cat Scratch Fever, but it's got Stranglehold and Stormtroopin' and Hey Baby and Just What the Doctor Ordered and Snakeskin Cowboy and Motor City Madhouse. I mean, those tracks alone are probably on every single best of album. So I mean, this album is almost the best of by itself. But it also has Where Have You Been All My Life, You Make Me Feel Right at Home, which is a very odd track, probably more fitting to the Amboy Dukes than Nugent, and then Queen of the Forest ends the album. And of course, this was the introduction of Derek St. Holmes, who became very, very popular at the time. Anyhow, one of my favorite albums of all time. The first album from Ted Nugent from 1975, was it? Or is it 74? Should look that stuff up before I do videos. But anyhow, right around that time, classic album. There's my ranking. Number 1, Ted Nugent. That's all. Appreciate y'all watching. I'd love to hear you guys, what you guys think of these albums. Give me your opinions on them. I really don't care for people's opinions about his, what you think of his politics or his opinions. That's not the point here. I want to know what you think of his music. I want you to know what you think of the songs. I want you to know what you think of these albums. So I'm kind of hoping you guys can keep it to that in the comments section, and I'll try and get back to all of you. Appreciate y'all watching. God bless. Stay strong.